I just, I just, I just speak my peace, keep my peace.
What's good, everybody? Welcome to episode 75 of the Speak My Peace podcast. As always, I am your thankful host, Greg Lacey. Like you always do about this time, I do want to take the time and say that I hope that this episode is reaching you all a good health. If it's not, I'm wishing you all a speedy recovery. We know what we're still currently dealing with. Just considering the times that we are in as we continue to battle COVID. I guess in some sense, there's a sense of hope with the developments that's been coming out in regards to the vaccines. But the fact of the matter is this virus is still out there, it's still taking the lives of many, it's still affecting the lives of many. So I hope that you all are still taking the proper precautions to protect yourselves and your loved ones, especially with the holidays coming up and being here. The first one being Thanksgiving, and obviously we have Christmas or Kwanzaa, and then we have New Year's to end the year. So hope that you all are still able to take the proper precautions to protect yourself and your loved ones as we begin to gather with people that we may not have seen throughout the whole year because we've been stuck in this quarantine. I know me for one, am prepared to gather with some of my family for Thanksgiving. But I will be taking the proper precautions just to, make sure that I am not affecting anyone or anyone is not affecting me, just because that's what's important right now. Some would say I probably shouldn't be gathering with my family in the first place, and that is correct. That is right. But I think that I can protect myself and not be reckless out here. And it could be me just being biased and just it being convenience for myself. But the fact of the matter is that I understand this virus is out here. My family understands this virus is out here, and I know that we won't go out of our ways to put any one of us at harm. And so most of my listeners, most of you may find yourselves in the same situation I'm find myself in during the release of this podcast, to where you may be gathering a family. If you feel the need to wear a mask, do exercise that. It's a proper precaution. It's a proper safety net. Just for those of us who are not in the knowing of what we are being introduced to or what is being brought around us in the vicinity of being around family. It's nothing wrong with doing that. We need social distance, eat your dinner away from people, which most of us already do anyways. But wherever the fact of the matter is, wherever the case is, hope that you all are still exercising the proper precautions to protect yourself as we continue to battle this virus. It's crazy even talking about that and us being here in the time to where we're preparing for Thanksgiving or preparing to gather with family for Thanksgiving. Just considering that this is the end of the year. I'm not going to get too much in reflection mode because we have a whole month left to do that, to reflect on what this year has been. But just take the time to reflect and be grateful and be thankful to still be here, because it's many families that are gathering, and someone is not sitting at that table this year. Someone who has been a pillar in that family, someone who's been a staple in that family for so long, it's not being able to gather at that table, whether it's because their life may has been taken due to COVID, or maybe they may be in the hospital battling COVID. Whatever the case may be, just think and reflect on that. And if you don't have anything to be thankful for this year, if this year has been terrible for you as it has been for many, just be thankful that you are still here, for better or for worse, and able to meet with your family or your siblings or your relatives or whatever the case may be. And that's really all I have on that for this episode. We definitely gonna get more into it, but to get into something in much brighter news, and for first and foremost, this episode is not going to be that long, just because I know it's a holiday. I shouldn't have even released the episode today, but I felt the need to get this out. The first thing I want to cover before I get into just like the major stuff that I want to get in is huge shout out to the state of Georgia. I know that we had like a whole Georgia shout out episode when I was bigging up Stacey Abrams. when we were speaking about the election, but Georgia is still, and as it has been, is still in the forefront of media because of the the production that they offer to this world, that they offer to this country, whether it's on the political front or whether it's on the entertainment front or whether it's on the music front. Georgia continues to produce high quality products year in and year out. And that was on display this past week with the versus battle with Gucci Mane and Jeezy. For those of you who don't know too much about the Versus, Versus is a platform that Swizz Beatz and Timberland has created to where they pit two artists against each other and the artists just duke it out over 20 songs. The artists, they play some of their top songs and the fans choose, by round who wins. And so we've had some very good matchups. We had the Babyface and Teddy Riley. We had Erykah Badu and Jill Scott. We had Alicia Keys and John Legend. We had so much. I can't think of them all off the top of my head, but we had many great battles. And this season 2 started off with a very big one, not only for the streets but for the state of Georgia. And that's the reason why I'm thinking the state of Georgia to start this off. Gucci Mane and Jeezy, man. Gucci Mane and Jeezy, man, is what I try to say. This was big just because of the history behind these two rappers. And for those of you who may not know the history behind these two rappers, I don't want to get too much into it. But there has been a long-standing beef between these two rappers from Atlanta. They were once, freaking collaborators, as you can say. And one thing led to another, and they fell out. And as they fell out, there was a beef and that was going on. And throughout this beef, there was casualties, I believe, on both ends. There was a lot of money lost out. There's just a long-standing street beef behind these two artists who were once collaborators. My introduction to these two had to have been 2005, I believe, was the single "So Icy" was released. I remember that being released and frequently seeing that video on whether it was 106 The Park, MTV Jams, or wherever videos were coming on during that time. And I've never been a fan of Gucci Mane up until recent. I'm a Gucci Mane fan now. But in the early beginnings, I definitely wasn't a fan of Gucci Mane. Just wasn't a fan of his music. But Gucci Mane was hot, especially in the streets of Georgia, especially in the South. And from my understanding, both of the artists were coming up around the same time. But Gucci Mane was more established than Jeezy was in the beginning. And so the So Icy collaboration, it helped both of them because you had this budding star in Atlanta. You had the star you had this rapper who was a star in the streets of Atlanta. Not so much mainstream, but at least as far as the streets go, Gucci Mane was popping off at this time. And so you have this collaborator, this joint effort from these two up and coming stars in the city, and I believe it did well. And somewhere around the time that single being released, and the following year they fell out. I'm not gonna get into too much of the chitty chat around it, but they fell out. And as a result, they've been beefing for well over a decade, and it's divided a lot of people. It's divided a lot of people within the areas of Atlanta just because of, that someone may be tied to a certain camp, someone may be a fan of a certain artist, someone may be tied to a certain section to where a certain artist come from. And fast forward to last Thursday, we got the verses of these two. First, to start off, it was supposed to be a battle of two other Atlanta stars, which was Young Jeezy and T.I. And somewhere in between that being set up, I guess Jeezy set up a call with Swizz Beatz and told them that, I'm not going to get into the specifics of that because I don't know how it switched up and they got Gucci Mane on the card. But we got Gucci Mane on the card. And leading up to this, a lot of people was like, I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen because the last couple of versus battles has been the two stars been in a room with each other. And a lot of people was concerned, like, how is this going to happen? How are they going to execute that? when the handful of versus battles, the artists have been in the room with each other. We know that these two have not spoken to each other. We know we have not seen these two in the same place in so many years. So how is that gonna happen? The reason why I'm starting off this podcast highlighting this versus battle is not even surrounding the actual music that was played. It's not surrounding the winner. It was just the fact that we had those two in a room and the convenience of that relating to what the last two episodes of this podcast was about, speaking about holding ourselves accountable, the maturity that's needed from within our community, especially with black men, and then just evolving, the evolution that we need within our communities. This was on full display here. Granted, it was still some like pettiness within there, which happens. And I totally understand that, and the majority of it was on Gucci Mane's side, but. And I'm not faulting him for that, because for those of you who don't know the backstory behind a lot of it, there was an attempt on Gucci Mane's life at the hands of someone who was linked with Jeezy. And you can look into it, you can do your deep dive into the specifics of that, but that is a fact. The motives can be debated, but the fact of the matter is there was an attempt on his life. So if you put me in a room with someone who was linked with someone who attempted to take my life away, there's going to be some animosity. There's going to be some pent up aggression. There's going to be like, I'm going to feel the need to try to belittle you. And so I think a lot of people coming in there, they knew that was going to happen. I think the way that was executed, a lot of people were surprised because no one knew that it was actually going to be executed the way it was executed. But beyond all that, the fact that we got two black men, two black entrepreneurs, two black artists, two men who overcame a lot and has provided a lot of opportunities for a lot of people, were displayed on this stage and was able to be in the same room and not, have any altercations, whether it was from the entourage or the party they brought in with them, whether it's with each other's, or whatever the case each other's is not a word, each other, whatever the case it may be. I felt like the brilliancy, and I feel like the best part about that whole versus was the fact that it was executed the way it was executed. The song So Icy I spoke about in the beginning, my introduction to them, they ended up performing that song. Speculation is that was part of the beef, or the reason why they have been beefing for the majority of the past 2 decades, is because I think that young Jeezy was supposed to perform with Gucci Mane one time, and he pulled out a performance, and they never got to perform that song. No matter how big it got, they never got to perform that song together because of that one time where Jeezy pulled out, and then from there it started beef, and that escalated, and it was withstood more than a decade. And so to see all that be put aside, to see all that be squashed, and to see these young black executives, it was definitely great. But the reason why I'm shouting at Atlanta is because we don't speak about it too much, but Atlanta is the hub for black excellence. Whether we're talking about black executives, whatever field it may be, finance, entertainment, technology, music, that is a hub for those people. Hell, even professional sports. The head coach of the professional basketball team in Atlanta is a black man. And so when we think about that, and we think about the name that people have dubbed for Atlanta, calling it Black Hollywood, it is a hub for just black empowerment. It's like it's no way that all of the talent that resides there and the talent that is produced out of there, it's no way that we can ignore that. And so to see on the heels of an election where, Stacey Abrams, the woman who was wrong, who we spoke about 2 episodes ago, who was able to get the entire state of Georgia to turn the state of Georgia blue. And then we get 2 weeks later, or 3 weeks later, I believe, 2 weeks later from the election, 3 weeks. I'm going back and forth. But 2 weeks later from the election, and we see, this black excellence also being, no matter what the specific, not the specific, no matter what the extracurricular stuff that was going on around the verses or doing the verses, the fact of the matter is that We didn't have any casualties following this event. We didn't have any altercations following this event. We didn't have any verbal disputes. We didn't have any of that. We just had a versus battle. It was executed as the previous ones were. And then later on that night, there was also an event held in the city of Atlanta to where they celebrated the fact that these two artists came together and was able to be in the same spot and be able to hash out whatever they've had for the past decade or so. And so when we think of the culmination of all of that, and we think about all that Atlanta has offered, it's no way that we can't. It's no way that we can ignore what they're bringing to the forefront for our people. So I want to say huge shout out to, and I know we spent about 10 minutes on that, but it was definitely well needed. We got to give our props to whether it's the state of Georgia or the city of Atlanta. We had to give our props to what our people are doing down there, whether they're from there or they're transplants. There's a lot of important things coming out of that city due to what is being offered for our people down there. So huge shout out to Atlanta. Again, I said this episode was not going to be long, so this is the last thing I have. I don't want to get into reflection mode, as I said, because we got a whole month left to do that. But I just want to say, to reiterate my point earlier, just be thankful that we are here. We're living in wild times. It's November. I believe COVID was first introduced to the world like around this time last year. I believe it was November. It had to be October or November, I believe, to where like it started being covered in the news. Where there was like this virus coming out of Wuhan, China, and then it eventually spread worldwide. But let's just be glad that we are here and we are breathing and that we are healthy. And if we're not healthy, let's just be glad that we have an opportunity to improve our health. Whether we're under conditions of COVID, whether we got a strep throat, whether we got a headache, let's be grateful for these opportunities. I'm not gonna get religious because people walk of many different faiths in this world, and I'm aware that my podcast spread across many regions in many countries, and people have different beliefs, and I understand that. But let's just be grateful, and there was a higher power you believe in. Be thankful to that. But the most important thing right now is just bask in the love, whether you are able to gather that from your family, whether you are gather that from your loved ones. Just understand how important it is to be able to receive that during these times, because there are a lot of people in this world that are missing out on that, and we can't take that for granted. I know a lot of this podcast, a lot of times I speak about what's going on in the world and what's wrong in the world, but the one thing that is genuine and one thing that is right is always that love that we receive from our closest loved ones, whether related or not. That's really all I have for this episode. I didn't want to give you guys too much. I thank you all for tuning into the Speak My Peace podcast. Make sure that you're subscribing. We are now on YouTube, so subscribe to the YouTube page at Speak My Peace TV. Make sure you subscribe on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever the case may be. Subscribe. That is the word of this podcast, of this episode. Before we get out of here, my what to watch for this week, I just started watching his Dark Materials on HBO. I just started season 1 last week or a week ago or a week before that. It's definitely it's really good. I know season 2 is airing now, but check out his Dark Materials on HBO. My best kept secret for this week. My best kept secret for this week, we're gonna go with Blast, overrated. Once again, my best kept secret for this week is Blast, overrated. That's the Speak My Peace podcast for this week. Y'all stay safe. Protect your health, whether it's mental or physical. Love on your loved ones. Show your gratitude. Show your appreciation. That's really all I have. That's Speak My Peace podcast. I'm out.